Hey, we've got a big problem in the West Pacific, and its name is Super Typhoon Hagupit, and it's headed pretty much directly toward the Philippines. Now, in the Philippines, they're used to typhoons. I mean, you guys get typhoons all the time. But last year, November of 2013, it got hit by a really, really bad one. Super Typhoon Haiyan just demolished Tacloban, over 6,000 people killed. Now, this storm is not going to be quite as strong as Haiyan, but the problem is it has the potential to impact some of the same areas that were impacted just over a year ago. There's still a little bit of uncertainty as to exactly where the center of the storm is going to pass, and that's what this cone of uncertainty is showing us. So the eye of the storm could end up going just north of the Philippines, but it also has the chance of going directly through and just barreling through the country. You see Tacloban right there. By this weekend, you guys be aware, because this is definitely the type of situation that can get ugly very quickly.
Sydney is bracing for more wild storms after another night of loud thunder, lightning strikes and heavy rain. The deluge triggered flash flooding across the city. Power lines were brought down, causing blackouts, and a Revesby home was struck by a bolt.
The Bureau is forecasting more of the same for this evening and into the weekend, possibly with perhaps even slightly worse weather this evening.
The lightning did make for a spectacular show, lighting up the night sky and social media.
Good evening. Storms return to the southeast this afternoon ahead of wild weather forecast for the next week.
It's a nervous time for victims of last week's storms, and they're being warned to prepare now before the worst hits.
This afternoon's storm had a vicious growl. This is day one of a possible 7 straight days of storms. As it forged its way east, the storm brought flash flooding to Toowoomba and much-needed rain to farms around the scenic rim. But thankfully, the wind and rain stayed away from areas that received the most damage last week. The last of nearly 2,000 homes with damaged roofs received tarpaulins today.
For what it's worth, we copped a fair bit of damage in our own home, so we know what people are going through.
The big concern now is the legacy of the last storm becoming the weapons of the next.
It's not about removing mattresses or boxes or things like that. If they are sharp objects, though, it could be corrugated iron, we want them secured.
Free dumping of green waste this weekend means there could be long queues to add to mountains like this at Brisbane's waste transfer stations. With a week's worth of storms forecast, the battle to keep Brisbane free of debris will be difficult but vital.
The last thing we want are things that can, through another storm, become life-threatening for people.
The rain is finally starting to bring some relief to isolated parts of the state's west. Runoff caused minor flooding in Mount Isa, but near Baduri it's still so parched there's nothing to even hold the earth together. This mountainous dust storm late yesterday, a reminder of just how much of Queensland is still gripped by drought. Jeff Grush, 7 News.
Good evening. Thunderstorms are rolling across Sydney tonight, delivering lightning bolts and dumping heavy rain, hail and blacking out thousands of homes. Paul Caddick is at Parramatta Park tonight. And Paul, where is the storm front right now?
Well, Mel, these storms have raced across the city this afternoon, but right now the radar tells us there is still some heavy rain over the top end of the northern beaches and heading for Gosford. But the bulk of it has now gone over Manly and Bondi and headed out to sea, but not before delivering some short, sharp, torrential downpours across the city. Hail and plenty of lightning. New South Wales Fire and Rescue tell us there have been lightning strikes at a house in South Wentworthville, at the Asquith School where people had been gathering for Christmas carols, but thankfully no one was hurt there. There's also been fires on power poles in Manly and a power kiosk at Rooty Hill. Power has been knocked out at places like Fairfield, Linfield, Quakers Hill, Guildford and Richmond. This whole system saw temperatures at Penrith fall 10 degrees in just an hour. The State Emergency Service is reporting only a few dozen calls for help so far, but there are more storms on the way tomorrow and they are likely to be more intense. It's become a regular weather event this week, a hot, humid day followed by a monsoonal afternoon storm, characterised by fast-moving black clouds, lightning, drenching rain, even hail. Penrith was no place to be caught without a brolly.
Oh, okay, it's got that.
Richmond had 11 millimetres of rain in 7 minutes. Erskine Park with 18 millimetres, with wind gusts of more than 60 kilometres an hour. Today the first thunderstorm started forming over the Blue Mountains around 3 o'clock, hitting us here in Penrith just an hour later. More than 7,000 homes have lost power from Richmond to Mittagong. The system moved swiftly to the east, hitting Parramatta through the inner west to the city, but also well north and south of that line. Ryde, Castle Hill, Kenthurst all reporting heavy rain. It comes after a spectacular thunderstorm last night slicing through the sky above the city. The thunderstorms were late and they were loud. The lightning bolts delivered a spectacle across the suburbs. The with the darkness gone in a flash and Christmas tree lights outmatched. But no one was closer than airline passengers.
Oh my God, that's pain.
This video appears to show the aircraft copping a direct hit, but it's something they're designed to handle.
The lightning goes around the aircraft, discharged out the back, out of the wingtips. It's designed, it's certified to absorb a lightning strike.
On average, each airliner is hit once or twice a year. There were 120 recorded lightning strikes on planes in Australian skies last year, but only one injury.
It's a bit of a fright for the passengers, but has zero impact on the aeroplane in most cases.
The storms reached their peak around 10 p.m, dumping the most rain around Canterbury and Bankstown before sweeping across the city, airport and coast. Lightning struck this home in Revesby, shorting out the power. In the Southern Highlands, storm spotters even saw the beginnings of a tornado. Lots of people had their cameras pointed skyward, and with more storms forecast in coming days, there'll be plenty more chances for some flash photography. Paul Kadak, 7 News.
All right, this just into CNN. You're looking at live pictures right now of downtown Detroit where a power outage has affected a whole lot of people. Public buildings have lost their power, major buildings in that downtown area.
Yeah, we're told it's pretty widespread, the outage there. They don't know the cause of it. We do know one thing that parents want to be made aware of. They're going to declare a half day of school for the students in Detroit public schools because obviously they have no power. It is affecting some 87 schools that are on the DTE grid. So again, a major blackout hitting downtown Detroit, and no reason why at this point.
No, it is interesting. It was hitting the public buildings, not homes. There aren't homes be affected in the city, but still a lot of public buildings, a lot of schools, which means a whole lot of people being affected by this. We'll keep you updated as we learn information throughout the morning.
They now go to Crown 4's Jackie Sissel, who is in Marin City taking a look. Oh my gosh, this guy is thigh deep. And what is he doing?
I have no idea what he's doing, Daria. I have no idea. And you asked me earlier if I had waders.
Yeah.
That's why I don't have waders, because I have no desire to go walking through that water. I'm at the northbound 101 at the one exit to get to Mill Valley. You can see that the ramp is closed, and for good reason. You can see the flooding that's going on here basically submerged the road out here. Now, this is a place that's notorious for flooding, and obviously high tide combined with the amount of rain that we got made it for a nightmarish commute. And you can see that southbound 101 traffic right there. And that's because, as I spin the camera around a little bit, there's flooding going on just a little bit to the south of where I'm at, over here at the Marin City exit. The right lane, the right two lanes are shut down, and that has caused a nightmare of a commute. Now, if I come back out here, you can see that that there's, well, here's our guy again. He's going to go for it. He's going to keep walking in this.
Emergency crews have spent the night cleaning up after storms swept through Sydney late yesterday, causing blackouts and flash flooding. 2 people were struck by lightning. The State Emergency Service received 400 calls for help as the wild weather battered the city.
The storms rolled in from the west, hard, fast and loud. The electrical activity putting on a spectacular lightning show, one strike sparking this substation blaze, forcing residents to evacuate as thick black smoke billowed from the flames.
I was in the back room and heard a big bang. We ran down and the electric substation is on fire. It's massive.
The flames are just enormous.
It wasn't just the flames making the fire difficult for crews.
It's still charged with live electricity. Now, for this reason, we cannot put water directly onto it. The strategy here is to protect a number of surrounding buildings.
Across the city, emergency services received hundreds of calls for help. The wild weather toppling trees and ripping down power lines. At the height of the storm, 16,000 homes were without power, most of the damage caused by lightning. The heavy rain bringing flash flooding and slowing the commute home. In the suburb of Blacktown, more than 50 millimetres fell in less than 20 minutes. The severe storms giving the city a battering before rolling out to sea. Mia Burns, 7 News.
A large sinkhole formed this morning in San Francisco's Presidio neighborhood, and Crown 4's Mike Pelton was there.
And this is right in the middle of the intersection at 6th Avenue and Lake. This was about an 8 by 10 foot sinkhole in the middle of the intersection, but just a few moments ago, more of that road gave way on the right side, making this a much bigger hole. You can see authorities have this intersection taped off. Now, this all started at about 8 o'clock this morning. That's when police say a woman was driving through this intersection when for some reason her tire punched a small hole in the road, which also caused some damage to the underneath of her car. Now, police tell me it's likely a water main that was broken, but the hole that was punched in the road led to the main bursting completely, and then the water eroded away that underneath soil. Now, the hole has continued to open up over the past hour or two, causing problems for several different agencies this morning.
So the street caves in, it'll land on top of the gas line and rupture it. And then we would have a gas leak.
Police are out here. They've taped off the intersection. The water department is out here, as is PG&E. At this point, there's no estimated time for when they're going to wrap this up. Back to you.
The surveillance video shows a boy walking near a playground. He's 12-year-old Tamir Rice, and he's playing with a toy, an airsoft gun that from a distance can look like a real gun. A bystander calls 911.
And there was a guy there with a pistol, so he's like pointing it at everybody.
Less than 2 seconds after police drive up, the 12-year-old, again carrying a toy, is shot and killed at close range. The 26-year-old police officer who shot him, Timothy Lohman, had only recently been hired by the Cleveland Police. At his previous job at the Independence Police Department, Officer Lohman's personnel records show he was in the process of being fired. His supervisor describing an emotional meltdown and behavior that shows a pattern of a lack of maturity, indiscretion, and not following instructions. But the Cleveland Police never asked to see Lohman's personnel records, a policy the department says has now changed. Tamir Rice's death, the backdrop, as the Department of Justice laid out a stinging report on the Cleveland Police Department.
The investigation concluded that there is a reasonable cause to believe that the Cleveland Police engage in a pattern and practice of unreasonable force in violation of the Fourth Amendment.
The investigation took 2 years, finding Cleveland police officers use unnecessary and unreasonable force at a significant rate, including officers who shoot at people who do not pose an imminent threat of serious bodily harm to officers, that they hit people in the head with their guns where use of deadly force is not justified, and that there are systemic deficiencies, failures by higher-ups to investigate officer-involved shootings.
We found, frankly, that sometimes a rubber stamp mentality or approach exists to these kinds of incidents of excessive force. And when accountability falters, trust also falters.
A federal court will now keep tabs on the Cleveland Police as part of a legal agreement. While the announcement was set in Cleveland, the Attorney General says, as seen in Ferguson and in New York, the problem is not contained by city limits.
The tragic losses of these and far too many other Americans have really raised urgent national questions. And they have sparked an important conversation about the sense of trust that must exist between law enforcement and the communities that they serve and protect.
And just to give you a sense of the outrage that's out there, there was a Facebook post and tweet posted by the St. Louis County Police, not in Cleveland, but the St. Louis County Police. And this tweet essentially said, quote, kids will be kids, counseling parents on making sure that their kids don't play with realistic-looking toy guns outside. Well, this was immediately slammed in social media, Aaron. The police removed it, saying that it was not their intent to blame the victim. Aaron?
John Law, thank you very much.
Overnight, huge waves of demonstrators taking to New York City's bridges and roads, bringing the Big Apple to a standstill. Thousands flooding the Brooklyn Bridge and shutting down Times Square.
Hands up, don't shoot! Hands up, don't shoot!
Large crowds, largely peaceful, but this many people and this much emotion leads eventually to conflict.
We're making an arrest here right now.
NYPD making arrests after a massive scuffle.
It was all pretty violent. They were slaying people down on the ground against the cars.
They were very much overly aggressive. What a surprise. When has NYPD not been overly aggressive to us?
Marchers were chanting, "Whose streets? Our streets." Police disagreed.
I can't breathe.
Some staged a sit-in, arrested while singing and holding hands. But for all the noise, silence in Brooklyn may have made the most impact. Protesters staging a die-in, lying on the ground, next to them cardboard coffins displaying the names of others killed by police. Among the crowd of young and old, friends of the Garner family.
And what does this mean to you that there are this many people who showed up?
I mean, I'm so happy that people of all cultures, all ethnicities came out to show their love and support. And basically, we have to make a change because they're killing us off.
They're killing us off.
What do you think Eric Garner would have thought of all of these people mobilizing because what was done to him?
Oh, he'd have definitely been proud of this because black people are adamant about making change. It's time for change.
It was a surprise attack. This building in Grozny, where a local media agency is housed, coming under fire from unknown assailants. Authorities say at least 16 people were killed, including 10 police officers and 6 of the gunmen. Another 28 people are said to have been wounded. Chechnyan officials say the attackers first opened fire at a police patrol car, killing 3 officers, and then stormed the building. The assault took place just hours before Russian President Vladimir Putin's State of the Union speech, where he vowed to defend Russia against what he called efforts to dismember it. As daylight broke, the buildings continued to burn, a reminder of the fragile security situation in Chechnya, where observers say an Islamist insurgency is re-emerging in defiance of Putin's attempts to maintain control.